Nowadays, with social media, a few social media posts spreads like wildfire, and we usually fill our programs. And when you bring a kid into church, you're not just bringing a child, you're bringing a family.
Welcome to the Propel podcast, inspiration and innovation to grow your church. I'm your host, Larry Witzel. If God has given you big dreams for growing His kingdom, then this is the podcast for you. Our goal is to offer practical training for effective evangelism in the Seventh-day Adventist ministry context, but we know that the principles we talk about here are applicable in many other churches. So wherever you're doing ministry, welcome to the Propel podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, you've got to join us in person at next year's Propel conference coming to Puyallup, Washington from April 27 to 30, 2025. It's a unique opportunity to gain fresh insights, receive practical training, and connect with like-minded leaders to elevate your ministry and grow your church. There's nothing like being at the Propel conference in person, and we'd love to see you there. So April 27 to 30, 2025 in Puyallup, Washington, and early bird registration is now open at propelconference.org. That's propelconference.org. This episode features April Burville, a passionate children's ministry leader with over 20 years of volunteer experience in her local church and conference. She's taught Sabbath school, led VBS, and participated in camp meetings. By trade, April is a preschool teacher, and by choice, she's a dedicated Bible enthusiast. Every day, she feels blessed to nurture and share God's love with the most precious little ones. Her greatest passion is guiding children to know the truth and to say yes to Jesus. In this presentation, April Burville focuses on the importance of children's evangelism, discussing various methods and challenges faced by children today, and emphasizes the need for churches to empower leaders to positively impact children and highlights the significance of community outreach and family involvement in evangelism. She shares personal experiences and practical ideas for engaging children in witnessing and evangelism, stressing that witnessing is more about modeling behavior than just teaching concepts. We'll hear from her in just a moment. Before she begins her presentation, though, I want to thank the sponsor of this episode, the North American Division Children's Ministries. Are you searching for ways to truly empower the youth in your church? The North American Division Children's Ministries has everything you need to make a difference, from dynamic curriculums and expert training to engaging vacation Bible school materials and creative resources. They've got you covered. Whether you're guiding young hearts through faith or inspiring them to say yes to Jesus for the first time, these tools are designed to help you nurture the next generation. Visit childmin.org today and start making a real impact in the lives of your church's children. Okay, let's turn now to April Burville. Here is her presentation from the Evangelism Innovation Breakout Track at the 2024 Propel Conference, and her topic, Children's Evangelism and Teaching Children to Witness.
So child evangelism is basically saying this, for I'm not ashamed, right? You guys know this song, or sorry, not song, verse, Romans 1:16, for I am not ashamed of the gospel, for the power and the glory for everyone who believes, to the Jew first, and then also to the Greeks. There is a song, and so the song goes through my mind, but evangelizing to children, the most important thing that I hope that you guys internalizing is that it is not a smaller or lesser form of evangelism. Evangelizing to children and for children is evangelism. So if you think about evangelism in the sense of the word, it is witnessing to somebody who's not already a member, right? Not already a baptized member. Well, for the most part, the children in our church are not baptized members in our church yet. So we're going to talk about some different methods, programs and things like Vacation Bible School and home outreach and stuff like that. I want you to remember that it is not less than some kind of prophecy seminar. And not to talk business, but sometimes you got to talk business. if you think about the amount of money that we spend when we bring in a speaker from out of state, we spend thousands of dollars sending out mailers for an expectation of like 1% to 2% of people actually coming to our events, versus programs that we put on for children. We usually don't have to spend very much on promoting. We, put out flyers at libraries and community centers. Nowadays with social media, a few social media posts spreads like wildfire, and we usually fill our programs. And when you bring a kid into church, you're not just bringing a child, you're bringing a family. And so, like I said, not to talk business, but dollar for dollar, when we're, putting on programs intentionally for children, we're spending less and we're reaping more. And so it would be my dream that the focus of like evangelism would be on children first. Like, someday we might get there. And it is not a lesser form. You're not witnessing to somebody less than you. Like, their soul is absolutely 100% equal in value in the eyes of God. This is a short video, and then we're going to do like a quick discussion question after.
I'll find myself wanting to please the crowd. I'll find myself wanting to please the crowd. I'll need you to remind me that I should obey God. That I should obey God. I'll act like I don't have any problems.
I'll need you to show me how to share my struggles with others.
I'll want to have a lot of money so I can buy what I want.
I'll need you to teach me that my things belong to God.
That my things belong to God.
I'll struggle with my looks
and appearance. I'll need you to remind me that God wonderfully made me. I'll tend to think about myself before others. I'll need you to teach me that the last will become first. The last will become first.
The last will become first.
I'll think I'm a lot smarter than I actually am.
I'll think I'm a lot
Smarter than I actually am. I'll need you to show me how to learn from God's wisdom.
I'll want to avoid hard conversations.
I'll want to avoid hard conversations. I'll need you to show me how to speak the truth
in love.
In love.
I'll look for happiness in many different places. I'll need you to show me that joy is
found in following Christ.
I'll find myself stuck in bad habits. I'll need you to show me the way out. I'll need you to show me the way out.
I'll need you.
I'll need you. I'll need you. I'll need you to point me toward Christ when no one else will.
To point me toward Christ when no one else will.
So we know that children face a lot of challenges today in different aspects. I want you to, since we're pretty much 2 and 2, but I'm going to ask you to join these 3. I want you guys to discuss for just like 2 or 3 minutes, what are some challenges that you see children facing in life today? I'm hearing a lot of really good chatter, so I'm going to ask like from each pair that you guys will share something that you guys talked about. Do you guys want to start? What are some of the challenges you guys mentioned?
We talked about the challenges of technology for kids. Technology is not, I wouldn't say outright evil, but there's an imbalance to it. So their attention spans are decreasing, losing interest in normal things like plain and simple things like the natural world. The fact that each generation on Earth is getting weaker is working against them.
Yeah, it's like the technology use is actually changing our physiology.
Yeah.
Like the way our backs are developing and things like that is changing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I believe it.
The boys don't have the muscular development from going out and playing sports. All they're doing is, mouses.
Yeah.
And my grandson, I can see that he's got really skinny little arms. The muscles have not developed.
Yeah, I learned that, even just from 20, 30 years ago, the testosterone levels of men are they're tanked. Our grandfathers, probably when they were 60 or 70, had higher testosterone levels than us now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah.
And it's hitting them young.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What's one of the challenges you guys talked about?
I think instead of focusing on the problem or thinking behind it, that maybe there's a lack of relationships. Because that's something they're reaching for. The question I always ask is why? I have an online industry to gamers and around the world, and basically I find teenagers who the parents aren't involved. School is terrible, bullying, all this type of stuff, and you're being pastored to these kids from Russia, from Germany, from Middle East, from all over the world because they had nobody.
And that's where they're escaping to.
It's like they said, it's a para relationship, so they're going into that, and then because they don't have the other, something's lacking.
Yeah, something's lacking for sure. What about you guys?
Well, you touched on that as well, disconnect with their parents.
Yeah, disconnect the parents is a big challenge.
I think that's
We can't even get parents that care about their grades, care about their attendance. I mean, it's incredible how disconnected the parents are. They have no idea who their kids are.
They just expect like, okay, well, you're at school, you'll learn what you need to learn.
When they're home, they're all in their different rooms, on their own different electronics, and just no relationship. No one's eating together anymore. There's no family devotions. It's sad.
Yeah, and that's something that we can help change our culture, right? We can all be influences for change in our culture to address these areas. So you guys kind of hit all three of these things as you were talking. One of the greatest challenges that kids have right now is conflicting messages. And they're on social media all day, every day. And if you think that they're not, then you're delusional because especially schools that have laptops in classrooms. My kids go to a school where everybody's issued a Chromebook. And the beauty of that is all their textbooks are in one spot and all of their assignments are there, whether they're attending school or if they're out sick or if they're on vacation, they have no excuse to not get their homework done, right? But at the same time, kids are brilliant. They know how to get around firewalls and they know how to be sneaky and they just have multiple tabs open, and while teacher's talking, they're just over there scrolling or on doing other things. My kids are telling me about this at home, which is shocking because I'm guessing most kids are not. But this is an interesting thing. My kids, my two older ones are middle school and high school, and they told me there's this new label for kids. We grew up with the jocks and the nerds and stuff like that. Well, outside of the nerds, because I guess the nerd just means you're super smart and you're into things like debate and that's cool. That's cool. It's cool to be nerdy these days, which is awesome. But there's this new label that kids have evolved and they call them the computer kids. The computer kids. The computer kids are the kids who aren't doing school because they're completely zoned in and addicted to their screens. And those are the kids that are not paying attention in class. It's not the same as the nerds or what we would think of computer kids. When I was in school, it was somebody that's really intellectually into electronics. This new label is kind of considered a bad thing, which the beauty of that is there's enough kids that are aware of it that they are kind of giving it a stigma and stepping back. But the sad thing is there's a percentage of kids whose parents are not really involved enough and not going, not aware enough that these kids are falling into this complete addiction to the screen so much that even when they're in an environment where it's set up to where the computer is supposed to be safe, it's not, And on those screens and in our literature, I heard you mentioning, in the schools, they're being fed all these different conflicting messages. How hard is it? I mean, we would love to believe all of our Adventist kids get to go to Adventist school, but that's just not the reality. And a lot of kids that are coming in with grandparents, like you mentioned earlier, they're not in our schools getting a God-centered message. So then 5 days out of the week, they're getting this message from the world. And then maybe once every other week with grandma and grandpa, they're getting God's message of like love. And it's a fast-paced society, right? We live in a culture that is like, I want it now. If my Uber Eats is 5 minutes late, I'm giving them a 1 star, right? And the reality of a relationship with Jesus is it's a slow, lifelong journey. And we, have to teach our kids that accepting Jesus and accepting this message and this way of life is not instant gratification. It's not all my problems go away. It is a slow, lifelong journey of learning and growing and becoming the person God meant for us to be, and learning to enjoy the gift of the person that God made you into being, right? And then challenge number 3 is difficult home life. I looked up the statistics because what was actually in our curriculum is a little bit old because it was from 2016, but I looked up the statistics just yesterday, and the CDC in 2023 said 1 in every 7 children has experienced abuse, and that's just what's reported. We know that is definitely underreported. 1 in 7 kids. So if you have 14 kids show up to your church on Sabbath morning, at least 2 of those have probably experienced some form of abuse. Physical, mental, sexual abuse. Yeah. 1 in 7. And so kids are facing some hard stuff, right? Not that we want to focus on all the problems, but we need to be aware of the life that they're living, the society that they're submerged in, so that we can then look at, how do I fill in the gap with, like, how can evangelism fill in the gap for these kids? How can I be a safe space? How can I create an event where kids can learn the love of God so that I can share my little light and light them on fire to become little lights themselves? Methods of evangelism. Methods of evangelism are just like the fancy words that we use for like the ways that we implement it, right? So we're going to go through a few. Community outreach is basically, the point of community outreach is making a connection to unchurched members in our community so that we can open a window and open a door. We don't necessarily think that we're going to do one of these programs and then next week we're going to get a baptism out of it, right? We're opening a door to a relationship. And it's only through relationship that we truly make a heart change in anybody. If we look at how Jesus ministered, when he approached the woman at the well, he asked for a drink of water. He said, I see you on my level. I have a basic need, same as you. Can you help meet my need? And then from there, he opened up and said, you can meet my physical need. I can meet your spiritual need. So community outreach is just reaching across the table and opening a relationship. And through these different things, here's a great idea. And I have a personal story about neighborhood Bible clubs. So this is open my soapbox, right? I grew up in the very early part of my life from 0 to about 5-ish years old. I grew up on a dairy farm. And it was just this wonderful little heaven out in the country. We went to a country church and had just this beautiful, safe, loving environment. I remember being old enough to hold these giant bottles and waddle over and help feed the baby cows, by bottle. It was just this beautiful life experience. But my grandma, who owned that farm, unfortunately, if we would have just held out a little bit longer until the organic wave moved in, we probably would have been thriving. But she ended up needing to sell the farm because it really wasn't making money. And so she sold the farm, and my dad went to I think he was going to like an IT technical school in the city, and we moved to a trailer park. So I went from living in heaven to this like trailer park. There was like noise every night. It was not safe to be outside in the evening. Yeah, it was rough. Not really a great space for kids to be living. But there was an old lady there, and I say old, I don't know how old she was, but she looked ancient to me when I was like 6 years old, who in the summertime, she noticed that there were kids in the neighborhood whose parents were off working, and they're just, we're all just like fending for ourselves, right? She decided every Wednesday afternoon, all summer long, she was going to do a little Bible camp in her backyard. Backyards in a trailer park are not big. But she took that little tiny space she had, and she had a little felt board. And I remember she always had snacks, cheap snacks, crackers and popsicles. And she just said, anybody in the neighborhood, if you don't have somewhere to be, and she would see us. There was like a little playground area. She would go to the playground, and she would talk to us, and she would invite us to her, on Wednesday afternoon. I don't know what time it was, but come on over. We'll have snacks. We're going to do stories. And it was actually at her house the very first time that I accepted Jesus and prayed, and I was like 6 years old. So she didn't have no money either, but she took that little space that she had, and she invited neighborhood kids. And I bet you when I meet her again, her name was Mary, she's going to have just this crown filled with all these glittering jewels for all the children that she, would tell us Bible stories, and she would always lead us. She would always open up the opportunity and lead us in a prayer if we chose to, of saying, "Dear Jesus, I want to give my heart to you. I want to live for you. I accept, your sacrifice in my life." And it was just like a simple, quick little prayer. But whenever a child, raised their hand and said that they wanted to do that, she would take us off separately and say that prayer. And she would always give us our very own Bible. So the neighborhood Bible club can be such a simple tool that pretty much anybody can do. And it really does reach the hearts of children and makes a difference. It made a difference in my life. And I don't think that she even used any kind of formal curriculum or anything. She had a felt board, and she had stories and stuff. Family events. I kind of touched on this again a little bit. Family events they can be in the community outside of the church. They can also be held like in your church premises. But this is like where you're not just inviting the kids, but you're inviting the whole family. Sometimes after kids have already, attended a vacation Bible school or something like that, we'll put out an appeal and say, hey, we're going to do a reunion party. And that can give you a great way to have some time and space to actually get to know the parents and getting them involved. Family events can also look like a game night at your church. They can look like, there's this program that my family is a part of called Follow the Star. And it's at Christmas time. We have multiple churches that come together, and we put on a walk through nativity. So you get a walk through the whole, it kind of like starts in a modern scene, and then like a door swings open and there's a magi that's like, do you see the star? And they take you on the journey through the different scenes of the nativity story. And that is a really cool event that we can not only invite our community as families to go through, but it can also then turn into families coming and joining and working in service together, which we'll be talking about different service opportunities in the afternoon. But family events can be both like a production, or it can just be something that you're inviting families to be a part of. But family events are really really good because, again, they open that door of relationship. And often that relationship with a child is by showing that you care for the children of your church or in your community, you show the parent that you care for them too. Holiday celebrations, I guess I kind of already told you about one way you can do holiday celebrations, like we do the walk through nativity. Holiday celebrations are often one of the least threatening things to invite non-churchgoers to, because a lot of people grew up kind of like going to an Easter program or a Christmas program. And so a lot of people that are sort of like on that fence where they're like, well, I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church. That can often be the door that you open to invite them into your church and build that relationship in ways that, you know, they're already kind of accustomed to. Holiday celebrations can also be reaching out and saying, like, share your family traditions. You know, especially around Christmas time, if you live in a diverse area, even Christians amongst themselves in different areas celebrate differently or have different traditions. My next door neighbor, they are Swedish, and they shared a tradition that they do with us where it's like on Christmas Eve, they all have like this rice pudding, and there's one almond that's, what is it called when you take off the brown part? Blanched. There's one blanched almond, right, in the pudding, and whoever gets the blanched almond, it like wins a prize. But the Christmas tradition about it is there are, millions of people in the world, like millions of grains of rice, but there's only one Christ. And so you can use holiday celebrations to invite people to share their customs, their cultures, and learning about Jesus together. And it's through these kinds of things that we can build those connections of outreach with our friends and our family, and learning things about your neighbors that you didn't know before. Local school outreach. School outreach is really beneficial for both our Adventist schools and our public schools. Or I should say Christian schools, Adventist because we're Adventist, but our Christian schools, our Adventist schools are much more likely to be excited about a church saying, hey, we want to host like a weekly prayer meeting, or we want to start an adventurers club. And usually a church can work in tandem with a school. Sometimes you would be surprised that your public schools would be happy to let you host those kinds of events there if you just reach out. Not always, but sometimes they are willing to let you host those kinds of events and invite local kids. Local schools, you can also reach them by having a group of volunteers that are like, what is the need of your kids? We did a project with our camp meeting where our junior age kids packed snack backpacks for kids who need food over the weekends for a local public school. So during camp meeting, our kids packed all these bags, and then they took them over to the local school so that during the school year, when they have kids that they know are struggling and don't have enough food over the weekends, that they would have something. And our kids, wrote note cards and, just simple notes like, Jesus loves you, you are cared for. And those little ways help the connection with that local community to feel safe and non-threatening. And they help our children who are already in the church learn that they can reach across the divide and that they can share the gospel in a completely, anonymous way, Like we told our kids as they were like writing their note cards, if you could just tell a stranger one thing, what would you want them to know about God? God is love. You are loved. You matter. And you can also partner with local schools. Oftentimes, there's kids who are slipping through the cracks and need tutoring. You know, you might say like, I don't have that much. What can I do? Well, I'm not too bad at reading. Is there some first and second graders that need a little bit of additional reading support? Well, by showing you care for the kids in this other way, you can also reach them. It's these kids that you're tutoring, you can invite to your vacation Bible schools, and they're more likely to come because you've already built a relationship, right? Or by asking local schools, or like our public schools, like if you can help with reading clubs and tutoring and things like that, you're building a relationship with them. And then when you come in with your vacation Bible school flyers at the end of the year, they're more likely to be accepting and willing to help you because you've already built a relationship, you know? Whereas if they've never seen your face before, they don't know you from Adam, and then you come in with a pile of flyers, they might be like, that lady's crazy, recycling. You know what I mean? So we have to think a little bit outside the box on how do we build the relationship so that we can get them to come to our programs, because we can plan all the great programs in the world, but if we can't get them there, it doesn't do any of us any good. So local schools, and like I said, our Adventist schools, our kids, like you said, most of your kids are not Adventist coming to your school. But like, how much does a parent feel more valued when they're like, oh, this church and connection, they're really putting a lot into us. They're giving our kids the extra tutoring and stuff like that. These are just examples of like church fellowship ideas, things that you would do at your physical church. Like you would host your vacation Bible school generally at your physical church, but it doesn't have to be the only place that you host. I've known many churches that go out and host a vacation Bible school program in the park. You kind of have to do things a little bit more open-ended if you do it at the park, but you can set up a craft station and a story station, and you can do vacation Bible school there. Adventurers are a great program. Adventurers is really awesome because a lot of parents who are not associated with the church and maybe don't want their kid to go to Bible school, when they hear about adventurers, they're like, oh, you guys are learning all kinds of things. You're learning life skills and whatnot. And also Adventures, I think, is a really great program if you can get your church to build an adventurer club, because it is consistent week after week all year long, basically. And Adventures generally requires parents to come and help. And so it gets everybody involved. Sometimes Adventures is not your first avenue. You know, maybe you do something in the park first, and that's how they get to know you. And then from there, you're inviting them to Adventurers. Obviously, Sabbath school, children's church. We're going to talk a little bit more about children's church in the afternoon, but that is intentionally doing a program of church service for your kids in your church. And that is, like I said, you know, even our own kids coming to church week after week, if they're not baptized members, technically we're still evangelizing to them before they make that choice. We talked about family nights, children's Bible study groups. As you get into the older kids, Bible study groups can often be formed and led by the kids, by like your juniors and your teenagers. I used to do prison ministries, and you know what? In prison, the people that want to come. And the same is true for our youth groups, juniors and youth groups that choose to do Bible studies. Might not be a big group, maybe it is, but I can tell you that the kids that choose to do a Bible study group, especially when it's led by another kid and they're invited by another kid, they're there because they want to be there. And of course, kids' baptismal classes, that would be offered like by the church once you've already established that relationship and then you've offered that. And then family-style evangelistic meetings. This is like the dream, where we don't just do an evangelistic series and then also hosting a children's program beside it, right? But what if the evangelistic series was for everybody? What if the adult evangelistic series also had some fun activities and stories that were engaging? You know, in Sabbath school, I've had a lot of parents that stay in the children's Sabbath school because they say, I don't really quite feel comfortable in the adult classes. You know, I haven't really learned everything yet. So I don't feel like I'm part of that discussion. Well, a lot of times when it comes to evangelistic series, it might be a little bit much, and they might be a little bit more happy to be like, okay, my whole family's here, and this is my speed too, you know? And so if we could intentionally put on evangelistic series that are meant for the whole family, a little bit interactive and a little bit slower paced, things that the parents can learn and then go home and talk about with their kids, where everybody's on the same page. Beautiful. Beautiful way. And then family home life. This is more on the gear of, so we've got our families in our churches. We need to empower them and encourage them to start to model to each other, how is it that we live? You know, like my kids, they'll have somebody sleep over. We don't take a break from family worship just because a friend comes to sleep over. And like that might be the only night that kid ever sees family worship, or sitting around a dinner table together and talking and sharing. When we open our homes and we share our family life with others, that is evangelizing. That is evangelism to our community, to our friends. And hosting small groups. We did a small group for quite a few years. I want to say 4 or 5 years, where we had a small group of just six of us, and we're all families, right? We all have young kids together, and we would get together once a week at somebody else's house and host dinner somewhat potluck style. You know, whoever is hosting would say, okay, this is what I'm making. I would say like, okay, I'm making chili and baked potatoes. You guys bring the toppings tonight. And everybody comes over, and we would, you know, sing a few songs and do prayer and stuff with our kids. And then we let the kids go run around and play in the backyard. And then we would do a devotional and a little Bible reading together. It gave us community. It helped us keep our faith strong. And it helped us know that we were all bringing our kids up together. There are too many of us who are not sharing our family life with each other anymore. And like I heard you guys talking earlier about how like families are like, they're not doing worship time anymore. A lot of times, especially young families, it's because like they don't know how. They don't know what that looks like. I didn't grow up with regular family worship. And I didn't know exactly what to do, but I knew I wanted to do that. I knew I wanted that for my kids. And so I just, we had spent some time at somebody else's house and kind of saw the worship book that they were doing. And it was just a simple, like 2-page story every night. And I said, okay, I'm going to start doing that. And it was like, you know, because I saw what they were doing in their home, that we started doing it in our home. And I have an alarm on my phone at 8 o'clock for teeth brushing. And then I have another alarm on my clock for 8:30. And we're all in the front room together and we're reading a devotional. And as my boys have gotten older, you know, we've gotten to different, more advanced, you know, books. We're not just reading a little Bible story. But, you know, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he won't depart from it. I think that means not that our kids are going to like join us on this journey and never veer from the path, because I'm not so delusional to think that my kids won't, you know, make other choices. But I do know that it will always be in their mind because they've been raised up this way. As evangelism is concerned, inviting other people into our space to see that this is one way to do life. This is a way that we can do life and stay connected with God. We can reach them and reach their hearts. And like I said, we have an opportunity to be influencers. Our little selves, this little room here, we can influence the world. We can bring light to the world. And light shines brightest in the darkest, right? Okay, these are some steps for evangelism. And I have a handout for you on this one. And this is kind of more like just the stuff we talked about. But these are steps so that you don't forget, like this is how, if you want to get motivated, and we're about to get a little bit motivated here. These are the steps that you go through, and not that you couldn't think of them all on your own. But if you want to get your church or your school, your community into doing some evangelism, first you got to get a team of people, right? How many does it take to make a team? 2. So you only have to get one more person on board before you get going. And truly, you could be like Mary and you could just get going and do a little, do some evangelizing all on your own. Thinking outside the box. Like I said, like you can use your own backyard if you need to, or you can invite some people over for dinner once a week. And like I said, when we were doing our small group with families, and the only reason why we stopped is because a couple of people ended up moving away right as like COVID hit, and we just kind of haven't gotten it back going again. Maybe this is my cue to get it going. But thinking outside the box, whatever is going to work for you, for your family, for your little church community, it's so much better to do something than to do nothing. And having an outline, that means that like, okay, I've made a choice and a commitment that I'm going to do XYZ program. I'm going to do children's church. I'm going to do vacation Bible school. Like, give yourself a plan so that whenever, so you know that where you're going, right? You need a map. You need to know where you're going and what your goals are and how you're going to accomplish it. Okay, so if I was going to do a backyard Bible study with a group of kids, what materials am I going to need? Like, how often are we going to do this? Who are my other adult helpers, If you don't make a map, you're less likely to actually do it. If you make yourself a map and you make yourself an outline, you are much more likely to say like, well, I did the work this far. Let's do the next step, right? Also, the outline tells you what the next step is. Obviously, pray for your children and pray with your children. God says, Jesus himself says, whatever you ask in my name, it will be, right? So ask God to bring the right kids to your church, to your program. Pray over your program, and God will bless it. He will work miracles. Once we've committed to do it, God will bring the people. God will work the miracles. Demonstrating authenticity. Like, let's be a light and let's just be real. We don't have to pretend that our life is all together. In fact, it's almost more threatening if you pretend that your life is perfect or like that you've got it all together. Be authentic, be real, be a little bit vulnerable with others, and open that door for relationship. Like I said, when Jesus asked the woman at the well for a drink of water, he was, showing his vulnerability as a human and having a human need. And it's okay to, we're reaching out to our community, but what if we reach out and ask them for something, for some kind of help or whatever? And then follow up. It is so important to, if you're doing any program like a children's church or vacation Bible school, adventures, whatever, make sure that the very first time that a kid shows up, even if they're just a visitor, that you get their contact information and that you are able to follow up with them in some way. With with young kids, you know, if they come to Vacation Bible School and then 3 weeks later, before school starts, they get a card in the mail that says like, hey, we had such a great week, you know, at Vacation Bible School. I know that you're about to get off to school this fall, and I just want you to know that we've prayed for you. Oh my goodness. You know, first of all, they just got a piece of mail. How awesome does that feel? And then second of all is they know that you were thinking of them and that you've prayed over them. Then when the next mailer comes around and you're inviting them back for, you know, a holiday program or maybe it's the next year for Vacation Bible School, oh, they're going to want to get back. They're going to be begging to go because they know that you thought of them. People love to know that we've been thought of and that we've been cared for. And then assess your plan. So that kind of like goes back to, you had one plan 1 year, go back and assess it. How did things work out? How do we want to change things? What would we do? So now I'm going to ask you guys to do your thinkers, and I'm going to give you one of these so you can actually write down, but like with your groups or your pairs, with your pairs, this is little Betty and little Bob. And I want you guys to talk about and think about your actual situation, your actual church, your actual school, your actual club. If you've got little Betty and little Bob in your community, maybe they come to church with a grandparent every once in a while. Maybe little Betty or little Bob is a friend of a kid that comes to your Sabbath school. What are three areas that you can evangelize to Betty and Bob in this next year? What are 3 programs or 3 methods that you could actually evangelize to a child that you don't know yet? You will know them by the end of the year because you're going to be reaching out. So I want you to discuss with each other and then write down for yourselves three ways that you can reach little Betty and little Bob. All right, you guys want to share with each other? Or share with the group? How about you guys? What are some of the ideas you came up with?
You could be able to electronic free family night. You wanna?
Yeah, like an electronic free dinner time, so that the family would come, the church would supply all food, the dinner, and they have a basket on the table where all the electronics go in, and then those conversation card games would be on the table.
Yeah.
So the family was talking the whole time, hanging out, laughing.
I love that because then it's using outreach to also meet a need of like getting a break from our screens. I love that.
And it's happening on church, so they're still connecting with the
Yeah.
church, even if it's not necessarily spiritual.
Yeah, that's really cool. What about you guys?
So we have God's Closet once a quarter, which is children's clothing, about 240 people that are attached to that already. And we're trying to get them to camp remote one time a year, and then, which is a summer camp nearby. And then the goal would be to have one time a month. I was going to call it unplug, and then I realized it just gave me an idea for that. For a family would come during our normal fellowship meal time. We're not going to do a Sabbath morning Sabbath school. We're going to do a lunch together as a family, and then we're going to go into a kids program.
Oh, very cool.
Because I grew up in Douglas County, and I just know that they just would not get up on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So we have 41 families interested in that, and so we're going to see how many actually come. So that'll be once a month, because I don't have the staffing yet. And then I'm thinking of adding an agape feast 3 times a year, so the family can actually see the life of Jesus and experience that instead of, it's a really family-friendly.
Yeah, and it's participant oriented, not as much like sitting and listening.
That's what I'm saying.
It's very cool. I love that. I love those ideas. What about you guys over here?
Yes, someone shared, it's an idea from another meeting, but an ice cream truck outside the church.
I was listening to that. I was like, I like that idea. I might try that.
The short story of it is, a little girl kept asking for ice cream at church. The pastor prepaid for an ice cream truck to come and be outside the church after Sabbath. And then kids from the neighborhood started coming too for ice cream. And it was free to them, of course, But, then they started coming to church and that kind of thing.
That is so awesome.
It's a really cool idea.
60 kids come in.
You see the ice cream truck with kids running behind it?
Yeah.
That is
And
so
the parents are
fun.
like, hey, what are my kids doing down there? We better go over and see what they're doing.
That is so awesome. I love that idea.
One other thing I just thought of is actually building a playground, a community playground. That would bless the community. Kids would come there and it'd be near the church. And so
Yeah.
it would let people know where the church is. They see that, we actually care, that they enjoy themselves. And actually, people would stop into the church when there's evangelistic meetings, maybe even.
I like that idea. That's really great.
Yeah.
And it meets a need in the community too. Kids need safe
Playgrounds
places
are
to
great,
go
yeah.
play. Yeah.
All you're building, build a pickleball court.
Yeah.
The sports ministry.
Yeah.
Pickleball's getting really, really, really popular. You get people coming over, you play with them, you make friends.
Yeah.
Well, the kids are at the playground, right?
Yeah.
We have a group of mostly teenage boys, and so it's mostly all boys actually. Now that I think about it, I'm probably the only girl that shows up, and that's just because I'm taking my kids. But we have a group that through the summer months we do. What is the frisbee? It's not frisbee. Disc golf. Disc golf. Oh my goodness, that is like. That gets those teenage boys up at 9 o'clock in the morning. They're meeting at like a local park, and it's kind of cool because there's a couple older guys that are like showing them like how to throw it, a certain way or whatever. And no, they're not sitting down and doing a Bible study at that. But again, that's building that relationship and mentorship and
Conversations on this golf course.
yeah, well, and then these teenage kids are like seeing these older gentlemen at church and giving them a fist bump and like building a relationship. And we know that people that come to church and stay in church and keep coming every week is somebody that have relationships with each other. So yeah.
Another thing is there's this new thing called the metaverse. Have you guys ever heard of that? And it's basically metaverse. I don't know a lot about it, but it's pretty much a whole another universe and world that people have lives on. Like the computer.
Like the virtual?
Yeah, it's a virtual life basically. People live in a virtual world pretty much. I don't know how they earn money or whatever, but there's economies in this metaverse. There's places you go. But I was thinking for reaching these computer kids, to establish metaverse churches.
I like that idea.
I mean, first, I wouldn't want to live on a computer to minister to these people.
It's an hour a week.
What?
It takes like an hour a week.
Well, I mean, there are people that live in the metaverse though. So if there are kids who grow up as computer kids, maybe it ends up that their best functional life would be on a computer. But if they're converted, they can live their computer life and minister to people. I mean, I don't think it's God's ideal, but I wouldn't say it's a sin to live on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can reach people.
But by reaching them where they are,
Exactly.
you might be able to get them out of the metaverse and into the physical,
Right.
real
into the
life world.
So that's something that's on the horizon in upcoming generations. I don't know how far it'll go.
Those influencer, what do you call it? Those relationships turn into.
Oh, yeah.
Parasocial.
Parasocial relationships can turn into actual.
So we have a faction,
relationships.
an online teen group of teenagers that I've never done a voice chat. Basically 100 of us that go around doing kindness throughout the gaming world. And then we have our Discord, and then we do my teammates who run everything, I have to show up as the leader, or they don't think something happened.
Yeah.
So like 1 hour a week I can go and show up because I've taken 3 years to establish it. But
Really?
and,
That
and
is
my teammates are the ones doing the voice chat and all of that. And we have a code of ethics that are biblical basically.
Really?
And then they need one-on-one counseling, and I basically jump in there and do some house
So
rules.
you're already doing
You've
something
written
like
that
that.
up. That should be written up.
It's not very popular.
They're your
It's,
dissertation.
it's not very popular. I can see why, but I don't.
I don't know
Jesus
how to
came
reach
to a
my
world that
kids.
was
They're
born.
on screens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need something like that.
Yeah.
Like they're mixed.
Well, we're figuring out people are gamers, so in the United States, you gotta figure out, it's on the phone, or is it Roblox, or is it Steam, or is it, where you can reach these people at?
That is
The young
really
people are
cool.
Roblox, actually.
It's another mission field, literally, so,
Yeah.
and it's another country.
You say it's mostly on Roblox?
Roblox is a free gaming platform for computer gamers. Roblox, ROBLOX. You
Yeah.
can create your name, avatar. And the problem is if I grew up addicted to games, so I have to literally put some good restraints on it, because.
Yeah, I used to play a lot of video games too.
But they respect the older gamers, because the older gamers have history, and then you have maturity that they don't have.
Well, I mean, the same as within other like addiction type groups or whatever, like they respect you when you're like, I had this struggle and now I'm different. And this is how I've set up my life. You know what I mean? Like you're giving a different demographic of people something that they need and meeting them where they are. That is really, really awesome.
Like my parents, you need to do it to death, but you have some time.
That's really cool.
You can influence them in ways that their parents can't even influence them. I'm sad.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They need a parenting program.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to teaching children to witness. And so first, we're going to do an activity that you could do this week for Sabbath school. You could do this activity for your children's story or whatever. But this is a fun, super simple activity that conveys the idea of like, what is a witness? Okay, so first, I need one volunteer that's going to come. This volunteer, you get to look in the bag with your eyes. And then you have to witness and tell the rest of the room what you see without saying what it is. Who wants? Okay. So you can't tell them exactly what it is, but you can describe it and tell them what you see.
Okay, can I keep looking at it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's black. It's got a cylindrical shape. And along the cylinder is it's translucent, it's clear, and there's I think it's translucent, clear, it's shining. Okay, yeah, and then there's something inside, another white cylinder inside of the translucent black cylinder, and then there's a covering on the end of the cylinder. And a part where you could attach it to your clothing.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
Good job.
Thank you.
And
All right. Who's my next witness? Now this witness, you don't get to look at it, but you get to feel it. You want to be my next witness? Okay, look the other way, and you can feel what's in the bag.
so what would I describe?
What do you feel? What do you?
I can't say.
You can't say what it actually is.
So it's round. Typically, there's paddles involved. It's used in a game.
Oh, ping pong ball.
All right. I'm gonna pick on somebody else. Who wants to be my next witness? Okay, you're gonna be my next witness now. You can even stay there. You can stay there. I want you to describe what's in the bag without looking at it or without feeling it.
Oh, excuse me?
Can you tell them what's in the bag?
From there?
Yeah. Here.
No, it's large. It looks heavy. There's something protruding from the back. It looks like it could be a triangle shape, or someone with a boat, or, no, that's impossible. There's another.
Anybody else? You think you know what's in the bag? Without looking? Without feeling?
Describe it.
Yeah, can you describe it?
It's kind of soft, a little heavy.
It's a big hammer.
That's what I was thinking it too.
Oh, really?
Chicken bottom.
So what is a witness, right? What is a witness? A witness is somebody who knows something from seeing, hearing, experiencing in some way. A witness has a chance to share what they know, or they can keep it to themselves. So anyways, this is a great fun little activity that you guys could do in Sabbath school, or you could do for children's story or whatever, just to get the point across, like you have to know who Jesus is. You have to know the gospel message first before you can go and witness, right? So if we want to raise children up to be witnesses, we have to first teach them what it is that we want them to be a witness of, right? This is just a beautiful text from Isaiah. You are my witnesses, declares the Lord. And this is Old Testament, right? Isaiah's Old Testament. So he was telling the Israelites, you are my witnesses, declares the Lord, and my servant whom I have chosen, so that you may know and believe and understand that I am he. Before me no God was formed, nor will there be after me. I am the Lord. Apart from me is no Savior. I have revealed and saved and proclaimed, I am not some foreign God among you. You are my witnesses, declares the Lord, that I am God. So we have had the privilege of knowing God, and now we have the privilege of being a witness. And like I said before, a witness has a choice. A witness has a choice whether or not to share the gospel of God's goodness or to keep it to ourselves. And unfortunately, in Jesus's time, one of the major problems that they were having in the nation of Israel and in the religious sect was that they were being prejudiced against everybody around them, and they were not witnessing. They were keeping it only to themselves, and they were saying, this is our God and this is our Savior, and like the king, when he comes, he's going to do away with the Romans, right? Because they weren't being witnesses. They were keeping it to themselves. This is another beautiful verse. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. And this is the part that applies to our children, right? You shall teach them diligently to your children. And you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You should be talking to your kids about Jesus at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, when you're online and when you're offline, right? All day, every day, we have an opportunity to be a witness. And children are sponges. Right? They are like a sponge. They absorb everything from us. And they are learning and growing, and they are being formed. There was this was from Barna Group. You know, Barna Group's like famous for all of their surveys and interviews and stuff. They asked groups of children, what does it mean to be a witness, like specifically like a witness for Christ? Pretty much across all ages and in tandem, they all said these two things. What does it mean to be a witness? It means acting like Jesus and loving like Jesus. That doesn't even require us to talk, does it? Being kind, showing we care, acting like Jesus and loving like Jesus. So we know that our faith is more caught than it is taught, right? They're going to do what they see. They're going to copy and mimic the things that they see us doing more than what we tell them, right? So if we want to teach our children to be witnesses, and if being a witness for Jesus means acting like Jesus and loving like Jesus, they need to see us acting like Jesus and loving like Jesus. These are just some verses that kind of go along with that. John 13:35, love like Jesus. 1 John 4:8, God is love. And 1 John 4:19, we love him because he first loved us. If you could only teach those 3 verses to kids and those 3 points of those verses, that would be enough, right? Because they can share what is God. Did you know there's multiple intelligences, right? And one of those intelligences, quote, is considered a existential intelligence. And some people are more, have like a higher like awareness of this existential intelligence of like, who are we? Where are we? What did we come from? There's certain kids that are asking this question and trying to understand the universe. What is God? Is the basic question of that existential intelligence, which everybody has. If you are human, you are going to come across this question in your mind, and you're going to try and rationalize it. Right there, 1 John 4:8, what is God? God is love. If we can get a culture to understand that, like, oh man, how many changes could we make in our little sphere of influence? God is love. I already said this, witnessing is more caught than it is taught. We've got to act like Jesus ourselves. We have to love like Jesus ourselves. And witnessing in our lifestyle and in our modeling, like I was talking about earlier with like the family ministries, I've been influenced by other families showing me a way of family worship. And I can invite other people over for dinner and I can share like, hey, this is what our family does for family worship. There is one pastor, I went to a workshop. He actually puts together these little worship bags for families with young children, and it'll have like a little bag with a couple props. Like if we're doing the creation story, it'll have like a few little animal finger puppets in there, and for Jesus in the boat on the storm, you'll have like a little boat in there so that the parents can read the story and have like an interactive little toy for really young children to learn. Well, we can be an example of that in our homes just simply by inviting other people over. Hey, do you want to join my family for dinner? And we do worship, and you want to stay and hang out? And it's caught more than it's taught. Once we see it and we can have that idea for ourselves, then we can take and roll with it.
I saw an article by Dan Cerns. He's such a California president now, but he did a blog on family worship for like teenagers and things like that. And I thought, because I had a kid one down over the years, but now I'm kind of in this transition moment. And I thought, there's got to be a lot of ideas out there how to do it.
Yeah, so I have 2 teenagers, and we kind of rotate, and we've gone through some different books together. Whatever it is, we choose something that's like got like a short daily devotional, because that's what's easy, that works for our family. But we are, like me and my husband, we are loving the teenage years. I know everybody is like, oh man, just wait till they're teenagers. We are loving it because the discussions and the conversations that are happening, we start at 8:30, and sometimes the devotional is like 5 minutes, but sometimes we're not getting to bed till like 9:15, and we're only planning on it being like this quick little thing. And sometimes we are just tired and we just kind of do it and pray and go to bed. But the conversations with teenagers, once you've established that routine, it becomes like a safe space. And sometimes we're talking about things completely unrelated, but I don't mind that so much because it's giving them a space where we're building and continuing our relationships. And I will say, like, especially with your own children in your home, but with all kids in general, you're not going to be able to build a relationship after they're grown and out of your house. If you want a good relationship with adults, you have to have good, healthy relationships right now when they're young. So I don't know, I've got multiple different books that we've gone through. I don't have any like specific suggestions for teenagers, but man, like if you can get them into a routine, I think that they look forward to it, and they like having a space where they can like unload and you know, decompress. Yeah.
On a military base, and I'm trying to age myself. Back in the day when we used to go roller skating, so there was an activity, they did it maybe once a month, and they would have the teenage kids come and roller skate around. Roller skating was outdoor, but the music was worship music, and so you had people singing as they were skating, and it was just a way. It led to other things from that. That was an introduction.
Yeah.
And another idea was, because we're losing that part of our culture, is movie night at the drive-in theater. So some people have their homes have big screens where they could project. And one family in my small hometown invited 30 children. It was actually technically a birthday party, but they took cardboard boxes and made those. That should be for teenagers, maybe preteens or, yeah. So they're driving, you know, their little box cars, but they were watching The Chosen or other film. They were watching a show, but I think they were going to do one with the Hope.
That's totally something youth groups could do, though.
Yes.
You know, if you do it outside in the church parking lot and you can get a big screen and put up, I can see quite a few teenagers being happy and willing to like go to it and event like again. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, you're like, hey, it's drive-in night. You're gonna have free pizza and popcorn. They'll be there. Or ice cream, man.
But some teenagers say, oh, I just watch this on YouTube on my phone. Then there's that sort of obstacle.
Yeah, but if you just get a couple on board, a lot of times, like, I know my kids are certainly this way, and I know I was this way when I was a teenager too. It's like, well, I don't want to go by myself, but if my friend is going, then I'm there, right? So we have to get our teenagers to invite each other. You just got to get one or two to commit, and then if they start inviting each other, that's when they show up. Oh, I already did that. I'm out of order. So this is another just beautiful verse, 2 Peter 1:16-19. For we did not follow cunningly designed fables when we made known to you the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, but we were eyewitnesses to his majesty. For he received from God the Father honor and glory when such a voice came to him from the excellent glory. This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And we heard this voice, which came from heaven, when we were with him on the holy mountain. And so we have the prophetic word confirmed, which you do dwell to heed as a light that shines in a dark place, until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts. So that verse, this is the part that I highlighted. We have the prophetic word of God confirmed. I can't remember the number, maybe one of you guys know, but it's something like 300 prophecies or whatever that Jesus fulfilled from the Old Testament. And like when you do the math on that, it's literally like less than winning the lottery chances that like a prophecy would be told and then confirmed. And that's what Jesus's own disciple was using as his confirmation of knowing Jesus really was the Messiah, is that the prophetic word was confirmed. And I don't know if any of you guys have read or heard of the book, A Case for Christ. It's like a journalist that goes through and he talks to different experts and is like confirming like historical artifacts outside of the Bible, and do they confirm the Bible and Jesus's, experience.
And they now have that for kids.
Yeah, there is a children's version of it. And so like it's just amazing that we can teach our children like this is like historical documents that confirm each other. And this is how we know that it's true. You guys, who knows the song? Like, who's like, Anna stole the cookie from the cookie jar, right? And then Anna's like, who, me? Could it be? How often are we as Christians playing the cookie jar game? Oh, could it be? No. It must have been you. And then you get the cookie, and you're like, oh, me? Me be the witness? No, I don't want to be the witness. It must be you. And you're like, oh, no. Too often as Christians, we play the cookie jar game with our faith. And instead of choosing to say, like, I'm going to be the witness. Who's going to stand up and be the witness? I'm going to be the witness, you know? And so we have to teach our kids to stop playing the cookie jar game, you know? Let's give them tools so that they know what it is that they're sharing. What is the gospel message that we're sharing? And teach them to stand up and choose to be the witness and not play the cookie jar game. Like I said, they are just sponges, and they're going to do what we do. Here are a few ideas that our group came up with when we were writing this curriculum. And this one right here, handing out balloons or water bottles at the park with messages on them. A church that I used to go to in Idaho, we handed out water bottles in a busy intersection on a 100-degree day with a Bible verse on it. And that was one way to, like, let's give you a little piece of the Word of God. The balloons, I have been to a park where a church was handing out balloons with Vacation Bible School invites tied to them. And guess what? Like, my kids wanted to go to that Vacation Bible School. And we did go to that Vacation Bible School because somebody was there with a fun idea and an invite to their church. Free popcorn tables and story and coloring pages at the park. Distributing socks or gloves to the homeless. I don't know what your area is like, but around here in the Portland metro area, there is no shortage of need when it comes to the homeless community. And that's something that, like, our juniors and our youth are usually pretty happy and excited to set up and do some, like, giveaway bags. And in the Portland area, if any public school kids, if they are public school, they actually have to take Metro Transit to get to school. They don't have their own school buses. So they run into these people, and they can literally, if they've got a couple bags of, like, emergency supplies, food, snacks, or whatever, they can just reach out in their everyday life and meet a need to somebody in the community and be a witness in themselves. Like we said, being a witness is acting like Jesus and loving like Jesus. And sometimes that means meeting a need, like a little bag with socks and a granola bar, you know. Singing at retirement homes or Christmas caroling. You know, our nursing homes and our retirement homes are kind of sad places. And they absolutely love when kids come to sing or read stories. You know, it only ends up happening a couple of times a year, and they are so lonely. But you see it in their faces when kids show up to sing a few songs or read some stories and stuff. Like, their entire countenance changes, and kids bring so much joy. Also, I believe it's really beneficial for our kids too, because they see that in a simple way that doesn't cost any money, that they can bring joy to somebody else's life. And I always say follow up with so much confirmation, and, like, specifically say to each individual child, like, I saw the way, you know, this person lit up when you were singing, or, like, when you handed out lollipops or whatever, I saw how happy that made them. And, like, confirming them or affirming them in what they're doing and giving them, like, that encouragement to know, like, yeah, you did good, and, like, keep going, and letting them know that that is also witnessing. Because how many of those elderly people in the nursing home maybe didn't grow up with Christ in their homes, but they can be encouraged by a simple song, and you can bring joy to their life. It doesn't matter if they're witnessing to their peers or if they're witnessing to the elderly, it's still witnessing. And you never know too, like maybe somebody there in one of those homes maybe is or, lived their whole life as a Christian, and yet maybe they're feeling their own like abandonment or something, because a lot of times their families are no longer visiting them, and they might be wrestling with God like in themselves, like I lived my whole life for you, and then like this is where I'm stuck at the end of my life. Many people who are living in nursing homes are struggling with deep depression. So if you can get a group of kids in there, to bring them a little bit of joy, that might be their breakthrough. That might be God speaking to them that day, So I want you guys to share, what are some good experiences you've had with kids and witnessing? Do you know of any?
Our women's ministry group started with a crochet for a charity project, and we were crocheting hats and gloves for the homeless. Children got involved. They wanted to learn the skills.
Oh, that's so cool.
Well, instead of hats and gloves, they were making stuffed animals. Like there's a name for them, weebles or something.
Those are hard.
They are hard, but these children are mastering it.
Yeah.
They're attaching eyeballs, and they're providing these stuffed animals in a blessing bag for the homeless to help them make their day. It could be a worm or a little teddy bear. I'm lonely, please take me home. And so they lay it out on hard benches or they call it, what they're called, in the blessing bag.
Yeah.
There's also other things like a bar soap or toothpaste and toothbrush, hats and gloves. But that's what the children.
That is so cool, because then it's like the kids are getting mentorship and relationship with those who are like teaching them the skill. And then they're also going out and serving and blessing people with those. That is so cool. And those animals, those are really hard.
They're not easy. Not for children. Not even for some adults.
At one church where I served, the Pathfinder Club, they would do like a Thanksgiving food drive. So they'd go through a neighborhood and give out a bag, knock on each door. There'd be adults around, of course, but they'd go in teams and they'd knock on the door, give a bag to the person and say, hey, we'll be back next week. If you'd like to fill this bag with food, we'll pick it up and then we'll make sure whoever needs it gets it. And the kids really enjoyed it because, it's like you're going out in a car, like a minivan or something. There's maybe 6 kids in there, 2 adults per van. And then, you watch the kids go up to the door and do that. It was fun. And this was actually near the Asheville area. So one night, there was actually a black bear running around the neighborhood. Yeah. Yeah, so then it climbed up in the tree like out front of someone's house. And
Oh my goodness.
before it did that, someone opened the door and they said, oh, a bear. And then they slammed the door because there was a bear at the door.
Oh,
It's funny.
I love that you bring that up. I knew of a Pathfinder club that they did a food drive on Halloween night. They all put on their uniforms and they went door to door, and they asked, instead of for candy, for people to donate like a can of soup or something. And of course the kids benefited because they got candy and food, but they collected a lot of food that night. And like people are already excited to open their door to kids, and then they find out like, oh, you guys are doing a service project? That's so cool. Yeah. There's all kinds of ways that we can get our kids involved in witnessing. Okay, so you guys probably heard about this before. You guys know about the wordless book? Yeah, so we're gonna do an adaptation of the wordless book. We're gonna do a wordless bracelet. Again, I'm making you guys do this so you have an example, and then this is something you could take home and if we choose one pipe cleaner, this is gonna be your bracelet. You could do this in your Sabbath school or for a children's church activity or so like I said, like kids have to be a witness. They have to know what it is they're witnessing of, right? So if we can teach them the wordless book, not only can they make it and they can share it. Sorry, not only can they make it, but then they can also share it. They can share both the information, they can also share the activity, and it can spread like wildfire, right? So first is the black.
Take one, you said?
Yeah. What does black represent? Sin. And if you did the wordless book as like a project over multiple weeks and do like memory verses for each one, it really would like cement that information into their brains. So sin, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Who is all? That's us, right? We're part of all. We've all sinned. But thank goodness for the blood of Jesus, right?
Sorry.
We're reading, in our family, we're reading through Burville, and we read the arrest scene last week. So touching. You said say this. We're talking about blood.
Yeah, it's that night, that story of that night is heartbreaking, especially, I don't think that I internalized it as much when I was like young, but like now, like, in real life, like when I've seen somebody, yeah, it's rough. But yeah, so this is a Bible verse. Of course, there's others you could choose from, but John 1:7, but if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus Christ, his son, cleanses us from all sin. Like I said, I would do one of these activities and then use these as memory verses to really try and solidify it in their mind. Of course, it's good for them to know each like quick representation, but if they can know the Bible verses also that go along with it, they have a little mini sermon in their pocket. White, purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Only Jesus can cleanse us from that sin problem. And then, so the original of this sermon in 1866, that's how old this sermon of the wordless book is, was only black, red, and white. These two were added in later years, and I don't remember exactly who added them, but gold. I'm going to make sure you get a gold and not a silver. At Hobby Lobby, they did not have only gold. But gold representing the promise of heaven. And I think as Adventists, this should be our big deal, right? Because a beautiful message that we share, not that other Christians don't share it, but the focus in other denominations differ from Adventists that we really have this, this message that like we have a promise of heaven. That in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. So that's where Jesus is now. He is in heaven preparing a place for me and for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, you may also be. And that's a promise that Jesus made to his disciples, and he makes to me and you. And then green, like I said, green was added a little bit later. But green represents like, okay, you've taken the plunge, you've drank the Kool-Aid, you're a follower now. But like I said earlier, like, we live in this like instant gratification kind of society, and that's not exactly how it is. We're going to grow. We're going to grow green, but grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. To him be the glory both now and forever. I like to tell kids about the trees in like the redwood forest. When they've, measured them, some of them are thousands of years old, right? Right now, in this earthly body, in this little earthly form, we're just a little pine cone with seeds. We're just a little seed, and we're just barely sprouting. But we're going to grow in grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior. And I think that that's a really big encouragement for kids to know, like, those trees that are massive, they're so big, it takes multiple of us to go around and touch to be able to reach around some of these big giant trees. Like, that's your destiny, right? But those trees didn't know that they would be that big. Technically, I guess they're trees. They don't know that they're that big right now, but but you know what I mean? Like, those trees when they were just a little sapling, they didn't know how big that they would be, how long that they would live. And with the promise of heaven, we are promised that we're going to live for eternity. So, and that we're going to grow in grace and knowledge of our Lord Savior. I believe it's in Desire of Ages, but don't quote me on that. Ellen White, she says that throughout all eternity, we will continue to learn more and more, and there will be new revelations of understanding to our minds on God's grace and mercy that were unveiled here on earth. We're just like a speck on a speck on a speck. We're just like a little teeny tiny piece of history, but we have all eternity to continue to grow and know and understand. So it's okay that I haven't memorized the entire Bible yet. It's okay that I'm still learning every day and that I feel like I don't know it all. In fact, it's better that I feel that I don't know it all, because the truth is I don't know it all, right? But having the promise and the assurance that I'm growing. So this is a tool. This is a tool that you can use in your groups of kids to teach them the picture so that they can have their own little sermon. They could be wearing a bracelet. You can do this project with just construction paper and making their own little book. I've seen it, and I was going to print it for you guys, but I forgot. There's a foldable paper airplane that you can print, and you fold it just the right way, and it shows each of the colors to tell the story of the wordless book. This is a really cool quote. This is a really cool quote from Richard Baxter. And I think it's really, really true. We will never see God move in a general way unless he first moves in our homes. So teaching children to witness has to start right where we are, right? It has to start in our homes as parents and or caregivers. It has to start in our own classrooms, in our own Sabbath school, in our own communities. We have to first teach them the story so that they can share the story. They can't tell you what's in the bag unless they know what's in the bag. So the biggest tool for teaching children to witness is teaching them what it is that we want them to be a witness of, teaching them the story first, and then empowering them with the courage to know that by loving like Jesus and acting like Jesus, they already are a witness. And, then they will have the courage to then share more, like the full story, the full sermon, and that they are a witness right where they are, right where what they're already doing. Childmin.org is where you can find children's ministry resources from the North American division. And it has some cool stuff on here. It's got a podcast, which I believe is also on, it's on Spotify, but you can reach it from childmin.org. And this is mostly Sherry and Jerry, so those are like my two bosses that do that podcast. But if you go to childmin.org and you scroll down a little bit, there are like different resources that are helpful. Some of these things are like specifically like about if you are starting a children's ministry program at your church from scratch and you want to have like an outline for like children's safety and what that would look like. That's kind of what that is. There are some Bible studies posted. This children's Sabbath link is really cool. They don't have the 2024 one up because they do a program for each year, but I'll show you like 2023. And you can use an old program, but if your church maybe say you can't commit to a whole vacation Bible school, right? Well, each year, I think that it's September every year is when they mean for it to be like Children's Sabbath throughout the North American division. But you can go on here and you can use the program for any time you want. They have, basically it's all printable. It has your curriculum for planning a Children's Sabbath. It says supplies. They're not sending you supplies, but they tell you what to buy. But yeah, so childmin.org has like all these things. Oh, maybe this is what you're looking for. Decision cards. They do have it.
Okay, great. And what was that under?
Although this is pretty simple. It just has like a check mark. I accept the gift of my salvation. Okay, so where I went for this so that you can get back to it. So first childmin.org. And then I went to the Children's Sabbath link. So childmin.org, Children's Sabbath. I went to 2023. And then I scrolled down and I saw that they do have here decision cards. So you could print some of those on cardstock. This would be really great, because it's saying like, I accept the gift of salvation. It would like to give my life to Jesus through baptism. So this is like if they want to go further, but then you can get their contact information to do that. A lot of people just don't realize that that the NAD has like these resources online. I'm just going to go back to the home because I wanted to show you. Like, they just have like all these different things for getting started with children's ministry. I don't think that's what I wanted.
So is this different than Children's Sabbath School?
Yes.
Okay. Totally different, okay.
Yeah, these are like additional resources that are available through the North American division that go in tandem with doing Sabbath school and whatnot. Maybe it was resources.
Has it been redone recently? Kind of new in view, so we should do it.
I don't know when it's been redone. Bible school. Oh, here you are. I was going to show you these prayer cards. So they have these downloadable prayer cards. I have used these. Like you just like download it and you can print them on like cardstock or whatever. But I've used them in Sabbath school for, sometimes, especially with like juniors age kids or like older elementary, junior age kids, they're like, I don't want to pray out loud, or like when you say like, do you have any prayer requests today? They're all like, no. Sometimes having something like this where it's like, oh, we're just going to pick the card on top and we're going to pray over whatever it is that is there. Like I'm going to pray about making smart choices, And then we can all easily say that quick prayer. So I wanted to show you that those are available. And I think that you can order these prayer cards from Advent Source as well, but they are available for free on here. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you for joining me.
Something that really stuck out to me in April's presentation was that 1 in 7 children has experienced abuse. And that means if 14 kids show up to a program, at least 2 have probably experienced some type of abuse. And knowing this is going to inform your children's ministry, right? Well, that's something I noticed. But what about you? Rather than just taking in this fire hose of information, I want to encourage you to spend a few minutes reflecting on April's presentation. Reflection practice is so powerful, which is why we emphasize it at the Propel conference and here on the podcast. So what was the big idea for you? How are you going to apply this in your ministry? What are you inspired to do? And when this episode finishes, please hit pause on your podcast player for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and just let your mind wander. This reflection time can be really powerful and can lead to some real breakthroughs for your own ministry. Well, that's it for this episode. We'd love to hear from you. You can send an email to podcast@propelconference.org. And please mark your calendar for next year's Propel Conference coming to Puyallup, Washington, April 27 to 30, 2025. Early bird registration is now open at propelconference.org. That's propelconference.org. Special thanks to April Burville for speaking at the 2024 Propel Conference and to the North American Division Children's Ministries for sponsoring this episode. This has been the Propel Podcast, inspiration and innovation to grow your church. The podcast is produced by the Sermon View crew, and the event recording services were provided by Adventist Learning Community. I'm Larry Witzel, wishing you God's richest blessing in your evangelistic journey. Please join us again next time for another episode of the Propel Podcast.